Call of Duty has so many explosions and shootings and punchings and stabbings that playing the game with headphones on rattled my brain around in my skull and gave me an honest-to-God concussion. I mean, even just thinking about it right now is enough to make my ears bleed. See? And yet still somehow, with all of that, the game manages to be forgettable and kind of boring sometimes. This game just doesn't ever let up. It funnels you from one traumatic event to the next, throwing death in your face at every turn. And after a while, you can't help but turn off your senses and forget how to feel. From there, it's all too easy to develop your own 1,000-yard stare, which for us gamers is boredom. This video will aim to replicate the Call of Duty experience. It will be fast-paced, it will throw a lot at you, and 3 days from now, you'll have completely forgotten about it. That's the Call of Duty guarantee, right there. But as for me, I'm just going to be trying to figure out how the hell I'm supposed to get back home. So this game does have a lot of good qualities. Like, it looks really pretty. The visuals are tremendous with fantastic scenery and convincing art direction, or at least that's what I'm told. I couldn't really see the game all that well due to a concussive symptom I was experiencing at the time.
Blurred vision. Which
is a pretty common one. But Infinity Ward did a great job of making everything feel so darn cool. The firing and reload animations are downright sensual. Shooting bad guys felt so crisp and satisfying, thanks in part to the impeccable sound design. Just listen to this lady scream under the might of my shotgun. The people in the audio department really gave this game a lot of love. You can almost feel the bullets whizzing past your head.
Man down!
The gunshots thumping in your chest, and the brain damage as the explosions rattle your eardrums. Towards the beginning, I thought that the mission design was excellent. The first level had you go from hunkering down in a crashed helicopter while staving off hordes of enemies for a few minutes, to breaching and clearing a house only seconds later, making sure to move through it slowly and methodically as enemies can pop out of, well, just about anywhere to get the upper hand and take you down. Modern Warfare 1 had a few sections like these too, but in that game they would be their own separate dedicated missions. Whereas here it feels like you stumble into them dynamically, giving the game a really nice sense of flow. Hi, excuse me?
Yeah.
What aisle are your guys the flashbangs on?
Flashbang?
Yeah.
Here part of at G11.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, maybe the other Walmart has flashbangs. It says here I gotta do a sponsorship. Yeah. It's called Pawns app. It allows users to complete surveys and get paid for sharing their opinions through the internet on different topics like fashion, cosmetics, and the car industry. Sound too good to be true? Well, I thought so too at first, until I realized that I'm getting paid to share my opinion on the internet right at this very moment. They also have an option on there where you can share your internet connection in exchange for real, truly genuine, cold, hard cash. Like the one you see here. 1 gigabyte of data translates to something like 20 cents or something like that. So this might be a good way for you to make some passive income, like maybe if you just got out of prison or something like that. I think a good portion of my audience are prisoners. In just 1 year, a real human male American named James made $64 for sharing his internet connection on Pawns app. After earning $5, you can get paid through PayPal, Bitcoin, or virtual Visa cards. And if you register now using the special link in the description, you'll instantly get $1 in your Pawns app balance. Whoa! This deal won't last long, so make sure to check out my special link. Look at this. I just made 7 cents completing a survey on Pawns app. How cool is that?
It's nice.
Is that something you would want to do?
Nah, I don't have time.
I always say that a good Call of Duty campaign needs to have a lot of variety to keep things spicy. And boy, let me tell you, Modern Warfare 2 has variety in spades. Spades and neuters. Immediately after the first mission, you're thrust into a short stealth section at the docks, where I got a pretty clinical little double kill here. I just wanted to show you guys that. Then before you know it, you're outside of a European cafe where you're shooting the cartel while trying not to accidentally kill civilians. Then you're chasing the main villain by hopping the Mexican border as one of two brand new characters, pointing your gun at civilians to de-escalate them in a suburban neighborhood, going through strangers' houses and asking them where the villain went. And I actually thoroughly enjoyed this segment. It's a really interesting and unique gameplay scenario that I don't think I've experienced before. And I found myself just getting caught up in the excitement of it.
You want some too? Drop your weapon.
Then the mission ends with you breaching and clearing a house full of cartel members. And it was also here in this house where I was able to take note of the level of detail Infinity Ward had crammed into this game. The kitchen looks so lived in. There's dirty money hidden inside the walls, and I found this shrine to the dead. What's cool about this room is it's entirely optional and very easy to miss. So they didn't have to put so much time and effort into the set dressing here, but I'm really glad that they did. The campaign is full of little details like this, and it really makes the locations feel convincing. Honestly, at this point in the game, I felt pretty invested. Gotcha, didn't I? Spooked ya? This mission had you breaching and clearing another house before hunkering down and staving off hordes of the Mexican army. I didn't feel like there was anything too special about this. I began to feel boredom as a familiar feeling washed over me here, because I could have sworn I was doing this exact same thing about 30 minutes ago, but instead of being in a house, I was in a downed helicopter. But there's no time to think about that. The bad guys are coming into this house, so we run away from them by jumping out of this window and going into the woods. And when the Mexican army catches up with us, we stop to shoot at him for a bit. After killing enough soldiers, we're able to run away again, but then they catch up to us again, so we have to stop and kill some more of them, which allows us to run away again. You just do this over and over again about 5 or 6 times, and that's literally the Webster's definition for how this mission played out. The repetitive motion of having to turn around and run away, only to then turn back around to shoot at people again, caused me to feel
dizziness.
Now we're being thrust into an AC-130 section, and by golly, it just wouldn't be a Modern Warfare game without one of these, right? Demolishing the enemy from above has always been a franchise staple, but as boredom continued to slowly creep its way into my chest, I realized that this AC-130 gimmick hasn't really changed very much ever since they introduced it in the original Modern Warfare. If you've played one AC-130 section, you've pretty much played them all. And I've never found the AC-130 stuff to be very engaging. They're usually really slow, devoid of depth, and dreadfully easy. This is pretty much just shooting fish in a barrel.
911.
Emergency.
Oh,
What's going on?
we're just filming a thing.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay.
What are you filming?
So it's a review for Call of Duty.
Okay.
Now we're doing a ghillie suit section, and by golly, it just wouldn't be a Modern Warfare game without one of these, right? Sniping the enemy from afar has always been a franchise staple. Usually it's in the form of a dedicated stealth mission where you crawl through some greenery with Captain Price, look down a thermal scope, and snipe people that can't see you. And as even more boredom crept its way into my soul, another familiar feeling washed over me. Because I could have sworn that just 5 minutes ago I was looking down a thermal screen and sniping people who couldn't see me, but from an airplane. I know these two sections aren't exactly the same, but they're similar enough for it to feel like bad pacing. However, you don't actually need to be stealthy here. You can choose to go loud if you wish, but I got the feeling that Infinity Ward had specifically designed this mission to be played stealthily. So to avoid detection, I wound up doing a lot of repositioning.
2 others can see him. Try moving to a spot where you can take out 2 with 1 bullet.
Like I spent a lot of time running to a new spot, aiming at the 2 enemies to see if I'd lined them up yet, which of course I hadn't, so I had to repeat this process over and over again until I could take the shot.
Cartel kicking the bucket.
I had to do this a couple times during the mission, and it was just so boring that I quickly felt myself overcame with an overwhelming
Inability to focus and concentrate.
After you clear out all the guards, you gotta run up to a warehouse and clear out even more guards. But what's neat about this is you're given some choice as to how you want to approach this combat scenario. You can go in through one of several doors or climb up to the roof and throw tear gas into an air duct to give yourself an advantage. And the thoughtful level design isn't just confined to this one mission. It's actually pretty well crafted throughout most of the game. There's usually a handful of lanes and flanking routes you can take in any given combat zone. Sometimes there's a second story you can climb up to, which adds some verticality, or you can even crawl underneath vehicles during combat. Yet still, despite being great, the level design adds almost nothing to the game for one simple reason. The enemy AI has no idea how to utilize those flanking routes or that verticality, which I think makes the level design itself feel less meaningful. It is nice to have a choice, but no matter what choice I make, the moronic AI is just gonna stand there and get rolled over regardless, thereby removing the need for me to actually make a choice. I feel like I say this every year with each new Call of Duty game, but the enemy AI is so bad that it really hinders the gameplay experience. I'm beginning to suspect that they too might be concussed. Thanks to the brainless AI, it was far too easy to make them brainless. I just found myself frequently dipping into autopilot while looking for people to bip in the head. And as a result, I never felt challenged or engaged throughout most of the combat sections. And you're even given a lot of extra tactical gear that you can swap to at any time, like a heartbeat sensor, tear gas, or a flashbang. But I always forgot that I had them. Hey, you wanna know something interesting? I don't think I used a single flashbang throughout the entirety of the Call of Duty campaign because I just really didn't feel that I needed to use one. But between you and me, in my confused, concussive state, I thought that flashbang was code word for premature ejaculate. So I really didn't want to press that button. But things started to pick back up again as the next mission kicked things off with an on-rails section inside of a helicopter. And from there, things escalated to the point where you're hanging upside down from a rope that's attached to the helicopter while traffic whizzes past you and you shoot bad guys. I think that this right here is probably the coolest part of the campaign. Once you've cut yourself loose, you fall onto a truck, jump to another truck, hijack it, drive it, and lean out the window to shoot morons. Once this vehicle has taken too much damage, you hop on over to another one and repeat the entire process. And I have to admit that I thought this segment was downright awesome. 6 years ago when Uncharted 4 did it. I mean, this is almost beat for beat the same exact slice of gameplay. It even starts off relatively similar, with Nathan Drake hanging from a rope attached to a vehicle above while dodging civilian boats. He then slowly climbs his way up onto the truck, kills a few enemies, and when this vehicle he's on has taken too much damage, he hops over to another one, hijacks it, and repeats the entire process. But this set piece worked far better in Uncharted for a lot of reasons. The vehicles were really fun to drive. They felt slightly unpredictable, which made you feel that you were teetering on the edge of spinning out and falling behind. The way the enemy cars blow up and flip through the air feels incredibly cinematic. Hopping from one car to the other is super smooth and dynamic, and the camera angles itself so that you can see the truck you just jumped off of explode as Nate elbows a guy in the face. Then you bump into motorcycles and knock people off of them. Enemies jump onto your car to try to rip you out of it. And on top of all that, this whole sequence is paced out so well too. It starts you off in the middle of a town trying to escape an armored vehicle that just won't stop chasing you. From there, you go through a market, a construction zone, and heavy traffic, before finally ending up on a quiet farm where you can catch your breath a little bit before grappling onto a convoy, hopping from car to car, and ending the entire thing with a super cool on-rails section. I've always thought that this was one of the coolest set pieces ever brought to gaming, so I can't really blame Infinity Ward for wanting to have it in their game too. But the convoy chase in Modern Warfare 2 doesn't even hold a candle to Uncharted's. The trucks don't feel fun to drive, and the handling is super stiff, and when you lean out of the car to shoot morons, you lose speed. Luckily though, the enemy is kind enough to slow down as well so that you can continue shooting them. You never find yourself driving through a new location either. It's basically just this one stretch of road in the desert for most of the time. Blowing up enemy cars felt unceremonious, Jumping from one car to the other felt so flaccid. And the on-rails section that followed shared a similar flaccidity as I sat in the back of a truck waiting for an opportunity to launch a grenade or two at an enemy car. And to make matters worse, I ran into a bug that made it impossible for me to progress.
Take another vehicle, guys. We need to spread out.
This actually happened a few times in a row, which caused me to experience
irritability and depression.
Who leads Shadow Company? Give me a name.
Now this was pretty tense, as I genuinely didn't know the answer to her question. Probably has to do with
Memory loss.
Ghost.
oh my god, what's gonna happen?
I want a name, not a call sign.
Well, I didn't answer correctly. Looks like there's no punishment for getting the question wrong, so that really deflates the tension, doesn't it? Uncharted 3 had this section where Nate's on a boat during a huge thunderstorm, and as the boat is rocking back and forth, cargo crates are falling down, simultaneously creating cover and danger for you. But that's kind of all that happens here, and it only lasts for like 30 seconds. I always thought that this was a really cool idea, but it never seemed to reach its full potential. However, our next mission in Modern Warfare 2 was able to reach that potential. It has you on a boat in a huge thunderstorm, and as the boat is rocking back and forth, several crates of varying weight and size are slipping and sliding all over the place. And if they hit you, they can bump you around or even squash you to death. And to make this section even better, there's an element of risk-reward. You can hop up on top of the crates, which keeps you safe from their unpredictability, but now you're an easy target. You can also jump from one crate to the other. In fact, you can go through this entire section without even touching the ground. I enjoyed this mission. This level was pretty neat too. With no weapons and a severe wound, you're meant to scavenge the environment and combine whatever materials you find together in order to open doors and slow down or even outright kill the enemies. I love the concept behind this segment because I feel like it breaks new ground for Call of Duty. The enemy AI does put a bit of a damper on the whole thing, but the thought and care they put into this segment really made it work. I loved being incentivized to explore for once, and they even kinda set this environment up to have some light horror elements to it, with ominously placed mannequins, really interesting lighting tricks, and I think they even flirted with the idea of doing a jump scare. After that, though, my interest started to fade again, as I was now just looking through security cameras while telling Ghost where to go and who to kill.
Dump him. Laying down in the job, eh?
It didn't seem to require very much engagement from me, as figuring out who to kill first or where Ghost should go was downright effortless, and it felt kind of uninspired. This is a rehash of a gameplay gimmick they did in Modern Warfare 1, and I think that playing this just one time back then was really all we needed. Hey you, viewer, did you know that in Uncharted 4 the villain was a guy named Rafe, and he sounded like this?
Now, why are you trying to instigate? Nate? Nadine and I are partners.
In Modern Warfare 2, the villain is a guy named Graves, and he also sounds like this.
I'm afraid not. Your men have been detained.
That's just something I thought was interesting. What I didn't find interesting, however, was the story. Now, I'm working off of memory here, so bear with me, but I believe the story has you chasing a guy named Hassan because he got access to American missiles, and he's gonna use those missiles to blow up the White House. And that'd be a tragedy because Joe Biden still has so many years of life left ahead of him. So naturally, we're hot on the bad guy's tail for like 8 or 9 missions, when suddenly a member of your team gets kidnapped by Hassan's henchmen. So now we gotta go save her. But if you ask me, this was just a small, meaningless detour since you literally get her back at the end of the very next mission. I feel like her kidnapping is just a plot device that only exists to move the player into the convoy chase segment, which is, interestingly enough, something that Uncharted also does. They'll create a big set piece moment and just try to find some way to cram it into the story sometimes.
Sully? He's not here.
But after that, you go back to chasing Hassan some more by teaming up with the leader of the cartel. But then there's a twist. Your boss, Philip Graves, turns out to be the bad guy. Wouldn't be a Call of Duty story without some kind of double-crossing, would it? And in his villainous rampage, Philip kidnaps another member of your team. So now you gotta go and rescue that guy too. Which, honestly felt like another meaningless detour. Now, even though I wasn't too fond of the story, it does flow together surprisingly well. It goes from mission to cutscene seamlessly, and in the moment I always knew why we were doing what we were doing. While it wasn't substantive, it was still mindless fun, which for a Call of Duty campaign is all I can really ask for. This game crashed and kicked me out to my desktop about 20 times. I must have spent an hour just trying to troubleshoot and verify files and launch it in safe mode and wait for the shaders to reinstall and all kinds of stuff. I also spotted a few little bugs here and there, but apart from that and the crashes, everything seemed ship-shape for a modern-day AAA game, all things considered. And yeah, I am admittedly neglecting a massive portion of what this game has to offer, but I'm really just not interested in Spec Ops. I don't like these cooperative type deals where you need to rely on the skill of your teammate to succeed or even sometimes have fun, and I don't have the time or energy to fully invest myself in Warzone or the multiplayer. I mean, it already took me 3 weeks just to get a video about the campaign done. Alright, well, I finally made it home, and it's a good thing too because I'm starving. And lucky for me, GamerSupps made these brand new snack bars. How cool is that? This will be sure to nourish me and keep me going, keep me in the game, right? Whoa! This is actually curing my concussion, this food. Bro, this is crazy, guy. Thanks, GamerSupps. Alright, well, that's gonna do it for me. I think it's time for me to get some sleep. Otherwise known as
Loss of consciousness.